hello, recovery fam. Welcome back to the Unashamed Recovery podcast, where we believe there is healing in the story of our scars and that it is okay to not be okay.
It is our mission to break the shame and stigma of addiction in recovery by sharing real stories of real addiction from real people in real recovery and real sobriety.
We share stories straight out the pit, stories of hope.
I'm your host, Josh.
I'm your co-host, Drew.
And I put the fun in dysfunctional. I'm Palmer.
And roll that intro.
The Unashamed Recovery Podcast.
That's how it's done.
The Unashamed Recovery Podcast. The Unashamed Recovery Podcast with Josh, Drew, and Palmer starts now.
Unashamed Recovery Podcast is heard around the world in over 42 countries, including over 780 cities, right here in the United States. People all around the world are hearing the message of the hope of recovery from addiction, and that's because of listeners, just like you, who donate, but also because of our local sponsors. Sponsors like D's Automotive in Meridian, Mississippi, serving the East Central Mississippi and West Alabama areas for over 42 years. D's is a name you can trust when it comes to your vehicle. For all your complete car needs and service and towing and car unlocks, that's D's Automotive. Go by and see Miss Jeannie, Mike, and the boys at 5024 Poplar Springs Drive. That's 5024 Poplar Springs Drive in Meridian, Mississippi, or give them a call at 601-482-1800. That's 601-482-1800, and tell them that Josh, Drew, and Palmer sent you. Now back to your normally scheduled programming right here on the Unashamed Recovery Podcast.
And this is episode number 64. I Am Powerless. Today's a special episode. Well, not so much a really special episode, but it's a unique episode in the fact of it's just me, Josh, joining you today. Drew and Palmer couldn't make it. Our schedules conflicted for this episode. And so I thought about, instead of just not publishing an episode for this week, I thought about, hey, let's kick it back to season 1 and just do a solo episode with your original host, Josh. So, and I thought about a topic for this episode, and what better topic than powerlessness? Because powerlessness affects all of us at some point or another in our addictions, our compulsions, our habits, our hurts, our hang-ups, our self-destructive behaviors. At some point in all of that, we get to a realization that we are powerless against this, that whatever that we're dealing with is now unmanageable. It's grown beyond my control, and I'm powerless against it. So I wanted to take today's episode just to briefly talk about it. It's not going to be a long episode. We don't have Palmer and Drew to help carry the length of the episode, so it's going to be a pretty brief episode that I get to go over and talk about with y'all. But part of why this topic came up is I myself am right in the middle of a step study, and if any of my listeners out there are a part of Celebrate Recovery, then this episode is going to sound very familiar to you, because I'm going to be taking a lot from the steps of Celebrate Recovery on this topic on powerless. You know, I've been a part of Celebrate Recovery since 2014. It's a big part of my recovery journey, and I live to the best of my ability the 8 principles that Celebrate Recovery talks about. And for this topic on powerless, we're going to be referring a lot to principle number 1. We'll get to that a little bit later. But for this episode, we're going to have an episode verse. So if y'all want to go ahead and open up your Bibles or get your Bible app open, the episode verse is going to be 2 Corinthians 1:9. 2 Corinthians 1:9. We felt we were doomed to die and saw how powerless we were to help ourselves. Powerless. We were powerless to help ourselves. For me, I'm a bit of a control freak. I like the illusion of control. I like to think that I'm in control of things, that I have my hand on things, and that I control the outcome of things. And that's just not the case. I never had control. That was just the illusion that I had. God is in control of it all. And so as we get into talking about this powerless, when we fully accept the first recovery principle, which is realize I am not God. I admit that I am powerless to control my tendency to do the wrong thing, and that my life is unmanageable. When we accept that first recovery principle and we take that first step out of our denial, we see there are very, very few things that we really have control over. Once we admit that by ourselves we are powerless, we can stop living with what I like to call serenity robbers. And serenity robbers are just these things that take our peace and our serenity. And some of that can be pride. Ignorance plus power plus pride equals a deadly mixture. Pride will keep us in a bad situation way longer than we would normally be in. Pride will have us not accepting our part of the problem. Pride will have us just staying at rock bottom. There's a verse, I think it's in Proverbs. I can't remember exactly what chapter, what verse, but we did an episode on that back in season 3 with Jeff. Pride ends in a fall, while humility brings honor. Pride is one of those serenity robbers. Another serenity robber is those only ifs. Our only ifs in life keep us trapped in this some kind of illusion, this fantasy land of rationalization. Another serenity robber is worry. Worry is a form of not trusting God enough. The anxiety in my life is rooted in not fully trusting God. That worry says I've got way more trust in myself than I do in God. Another one of those serenity robbers is escape. By living in denial, we may have escaped into a world of fantasy and unrealistic expectations of ourselves and others. Resentments is another serenity robber. Resentments are one of those things where if we're not careful, resentments will fester and grow hidden, that we don't see them. They're kind of tucked away. And those resentments, one day, they will be fully matured, fully grown, and will be holding us back and holding us down. Resentments will keep us from growing into our full potential. Resentments is the source of so much anger. Take care of those resentments. Those resentments are serenity robbers. Another one is loneliness. Now, I think COVID really did a big number in showing us that loneliness is a choice. In recovery, you don't have to walk alone. You don't have to be isolated. You don't have to feel lonely. In fact, in recovery, isolation and loneliness is one of the key components to a relapse. Don't isolate. Don't be lonely. Talk to a friend. Talk to an accountability partner. Talk to a sponsor. Talk to your ministry leader. Talk to somebody that is coming to the meetings with you. Don't be lonely in this journey. Another one of those serenity robbers that we were talking about is emptiness. Emptiness will steal your serenity from you. Another one is selfishness. Selfishness is one of the big roots of comparison, and comparison definitely takes our serenity. When we're so focused on ourselves and we're blinded by ourselves, we kind of have these blinders on that really focus our sight in a tunnel vision, and it gets in the way of seeing things for what they really are. It gets in the way of service. It gets in the way of us really living out that principle 8 of our recovery. Selfishness will steal our serenity. And then another one is separation. And in this is mainly talking about separation from God. Separation from God will most definitely rob us of our serenity. Because if we're feeling like we're distant from God, if we're feeling like God is against us, we cannot have serenity. Serenity is peace. We cannot know peace if we're thinking that God is against us, or if God is mad at us, or if we have any bit of separation. You know, a lot of times we like to think that we're finding God. We're not finding God as if God could ever get lost. God didn't move. We moved. We allowed sin into our life. That sin separated us. We feel distant from God because of that. So, as we look at all of those serenity robbers, pride, only ifs, worry, escape, resentments, loneliness, emptiness, selfishness, separation. When we look at those and we can fully admit those, we're admitting our powerlessness that we have, and that is the beginning, the true beginning of recovery, and that journey, a journey that will allow us to accept true healing. It will allow us to really, truly accept our higher power, Jesus Christ, and accept his love and accept his forgiveness and accept the healing that only he can provide us in this journey. So we're going to look at some things that, as we take this journey, we're going to look at some things that we need to stop doing and some things that we need to start doing. One of the things that we definitely need to stop doing is to stop denying the pain. You know, there's this old adage in recovery of when you're sick and tired of being sick and tired is when you're ready to change. There's also another one of when your pain is greater than your fear, you'll be ready to take your first step. Both of those are true. Both of those are accurate. And a lot of us, we find both of those at rock bottom. Rock bottom has been the catapult for so many people finding recovery and sobriety. So stop denying the pain. Acknowledge the pain. Don't stay trapped in it. Acknowledge it. And then once you acknowledge it, then you can start addressing the root of it and start working on healing from that pain. Another thing that we need to stop doing is to stop playing God. You are unable to do for yourself what you need God to do for you. You're either going to serve God or you're going to serve yourself. You cannot do both. There's a verse in Matthew, and it clearly tells us that we cannot serve two masters. You're going to love the one, hate the other. You're going to be loyal to one, and then you're going to be unloyal to the other. If you know that verse, feel free to email me. Let us know on Facebook. Let us know on Twitter. I cannot remember the exact verse of that. I know it's in Matthew, but I'm drawing a blank on it. So if you know it, let me know. And in addition to those two things that we need to stop doing, there's two things that we need to start doing. These two things are going to be crucial in this area of powerless. We need to start admitting our powerlessness. As you go and work through this first principle, you're going to see that by yourself, you do not have the power to change your hurts, habits, and hangups. You know, it's not within us. If it was, then we could have changed a long, long time ago. We could have changed on our own. We wouldn't have needed recovery to help us change. We would have been able to do it on our own. And then another thing that we need to start doing is to start admitting that our life has become unmanageable. When we get to the point where we can fully admit that one or two or all parts of our life are out of control, that is when we're ready for change. You know, sometimes you're unable to see how truly devastating and unmanageable your self-destructive behavior has become until it's fully matured. There's a saying that I love, and it's the chains of my addiction were too light to be felt at first until they were too heavy to be broken. A lot of times, by the time we realize we have a problem, they are fully developed and they are unmanageable. And that is why we need this program. That is why we need our higher power, Jesus Christ, to help us be set free from that. And so we've gone over a lot. Be thinking about this. Be thinking of areas of where you're truly powerless. This could be areas of anger. This could be areas of food. This could be areas of pride. This could also be areas just as simple as substance abuse, alcohol. This could be also porn and sex. This is not limited to just a few things. Being powerless, it can involve so much. It could be our phones. It could be TV. It can be work. It can be the internet, video games. It can be so much. Don't limit yourself here. Be thinking about the areas that you're powerless and that how you can turn those over to Christ. And I want you all to be thinking about those only ifs that we talked about. Those only ifs are our serenity robbers. Our only ifs in life keep us trapped. I wish I could underline and put it in bold print. They keep us trapped in the illusion of rationalization. Be thinking about those only ifs. What in your past, or maybe right now in the current, what has caused you to have the if onlys? If only I had stopped drinking years ago, or if only my wife hadn't left me, if only I hadn't lost that job, if only my kids would act a certain way, if only my house looked a certain way, if only I had that vehicle to drive. Looking at the only ifs in your life that have really set you back. What are your only ifs? And also, I want you to be thinking about that, what we talked about, the separation from God. Separation from God can feel very, very real, but it is never permanent. What can you do to get closer to God? And in that, I want to share just a very brief personal story with y'all. I had a very bad relapse in 2017. It is what really drove me to where I am today. I had a relapse in my porn and sex addiction, took me to rock bottom. And one of the key points in that relapse was my separation from God. I thought I was too dirty, too sinful for God, that I could not go to God in prayer because of how sinful I was, that my sin had got me trapped. That was the enemy talking. It was telling me that you're not worthy to go to God in prayer to get rid of this. And that is the furthest thing from the truth. Do not let the separation from God drive you further and further down that pit to rock bottom. The journey to rock bottom is like an elevator. You can stop and get off at any point before you hit rock bottom. Please don't let separation from God drive you further down. Take 1 John 1:9. Utilize it. That's our greatest tool that we have. We confess our unrighteousness before God, and through Jesus Christ, He makes us righteous. Use that. God didn't put a daily limit on it. There's no conditions that apply to that. Use that as much as needed. Use that to get out from your self-destructive behavior, to get out of that relapse, to get back on day number 1. Use that to get a handle on this unmanageable self-destructive behavior that we have gotten ourselves in, that we're powerless against. We're powerless against it because we're trying to do it on our own. When we fully surrender to God, that is when we take the power back, because God, Jesus Christ, our higher power, fights for us. That is where we pull our power from. That's how we can go on living day to day, is through our higher power. So as I close this thing out, I know it's been a short episode. I hope y'all have gotten something from this. I hope that something has stood out that you're able to put in your recovery tool belt to take with you. I hope this has really opened up some areas for you to see where you may be having some serenity robbers to take, and maybe, just maybe, somebody has heard something that they can use as a stepping stone to get out of that pit and get on that path to recovery. So with that being said, thank y'all for tuning in to today's episode of the podcast. I hope you have found it helpful and encouraging. And if you're still listening and you're still in that darkness of addiction, I hope that today's topic has been a lighthouse guiding you out of that pit and into the hope of sobriety and recovery, showed you that you don't have to stay in that unmanageable situation and that you don't have to stay powerless.
For more recovery content, visit our brand new website, unashamedrecovery.com. There you will find addiction resources, new and old episodes of the show, plus sobriety and faith recovery themed blogs to take you deeper into your sobriety and recovery journeys. You can even donate to the show to help us reach more people still lost in the darkness of addiction.
Also, check out more amazing recovery podcasts over at Take 12 Recovery Radio Recovery Podcast Network. That link is in the show notes as well as under our partners page on the new website.
And that is all for this episode. Remember to stay sober and above all else to keep on 12th stepping as you stay
Unashamed.
We love you.
See you guys.
See you guys. Peace.